Well, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Coffee with Chris. I'm Chris Beery. I've got to say, I'm really delighted to be here. It's been a great Monday for me today. And if you can't tell, I'm working with a little bit of new equipment, a little bit of new technology in hopes that I can help soften some of the rough edges on the show, on this podcast, on this Facebook Live, if that's how you're watching it, which I'll admit the majority of the audience that I carry right now, and I'll call you an audience, really you're my friends and my family members. Hi, Mom. I really want to make sure that this is something that's enjoyable, because its intention as a part of your day is to break up what I can only imagine is true for most people right now. It's just non-stop, an arbitrage from from the beginning of your day to the end of it, and sometimes even past it for those of you like me who have a ridiculous addiction to staying up late at night on their phones, of just a constant stream of negativity, of things that, with or without any notable intention, are just not doing you any favors, aren't feeding you anything that's good for your brain, good for your mind, good for your mental state and well-being. And I'm a firm believer, especially now, as someone who has struggled with anxiety, who's done a lot of reflection and still has struggles of my own, I know that so much of who I am and how I feel and how I show up to places has a lot to do with what I've been listening to recently. What is the environment that I'm cultivating for myself, that I'm curating for myself in the content that I consume. I call it content, but it could be the news, it could be the newspaper, it could be television, it could be YouTube, it could be any number of things. And I've found that the more I quiet my environment and focus on the still moment in front of me, the more present I feel, the more I can bring myself into the current moment, the anxieties wash away. The things that worry me tend to melt when I'm able to refocus and recenter myself. But I'm not without my own faults, and frankly, I know I carry a bit of an addiction to social media. It's part of the reason why I'm here. And so what I'm doing with this podcast, what I'm doing with this show, is to service those of you who, like me, have just the hardest time breaking themselves away from this. If this social media, YouTube, wherever you're consuming this is your way to stay connected to other people, especially during these uncertain times, I want you to know that you have a choice. You don't have to hear about what's going on in the world today, because it likely won't affect your day. What will affect your day is how you choose to prioritize what you're taking in. They say you are what you eat. I reference diet, I reference food a lot, and I think that food is an important representation of how one can care for the body. If you're consuming lots of crap and eating lots of junk food and filling yourself full of sugar and carbohydrates constantly, you're not going to feel good. You're not going to feel good. And if you don't feel good, you're not going to think good thoughts. You're going to be thinking, oh, God, my stomach, oh, I feel terrible. I'm tired. I'm groggy. And that's just not your best self. It's not the best way to live. Could you imagine living that way for the rest of your life? What if I damned you and said, you are stuck. You are stuck feeling how you feel after you have a large Whataburger with fries. The way that you feel immediately after, when the food just hits your stomach, that's how you're going to feel the rest of your life. And for some people, they're making that choice themselves. And so when you feed yourself crap, you feel like crap. And when you feed yourself good things, you tend to feel a lot better. The intention here is the same. Now, on to today's topic. I didn't mean to go on that long rant, but it's important to me that you understand the purpose of why I'm doing this. For those of you that are listening to this that don't know who I am, it's not a journey I've come to any significant destination. I'm on it too. I'm just looking for the right answers. I'm just a guy trying to figure it out. I feel like I've got a full plate because I've got a large family that I support. I'm the breadwinner to my wife and our 4 kids, who during COVID, my wife decided that she needed to stay home. She needed to be there for the kids. And honestly, it was a decision that we had made prior to COVID. February, we're looking at spring break saying, hey, we normally have issues getting a babysitter. Why don't you just stay home with the kids this year? She's still on spring break. So my wife informally retired during a pandemic, and I'm left in a sales position, the beginning of which I felt what could have been a catastrophe, a disaster. I was in real estate sales, and for the most part, we weren't sure what the market was going to do, but we'd heard rumors that we were going to be told to remove our listings from the market and take everything off and stop showing properties and completely shut down the housing economy for 2 weeks. And even at the time, that 2 weeks sounded horrifying. It sounded world-ending, career-ending. And what it did for me then was it reinforced a belief that I had taken on a year before. And this is the second time I'm filming this episode because of this technological setup I've got going on, but it's important for me to reinstate the fact that I'm not a wealthy person. I would more classically define our financial state as getting by. But frankly, I'm a 26-year-old man with 4 young kids under the age of 10. My level, my bar for getting by is much higher than I thought it would have been. Shocker, kids are expensive, and it's not their fault. I frankly embraced the challenge. It's made me a better person, but it wasn't something that came to me easily. But what it did do was teach me that hard times financially were not my best moments. I wasn't the best person, husband, father, son, brother. I wasn't the best person. And I've got to say, give all my credit to the friends that I keep dear to me. You guys know who you are. All of them can tell you that it wasn't really that long ago that I was struggling financially on a regular basis. I rode the roller coaster of real estate, so to speak. And it had less to do with my performance at work and more to do with the discipline of how I treated my money, how I paid myself. And, it doesn't, one of the things I realized at that moment was finance doesn't really care about my age. It doesn't care about how old I am. It doesn't care about how old you are. If you're in your 50s or 60s approaching retirement, it doesn't care. If you're in my age or younger and you're just getting started in the world, the rules apply. They're a little bit different. The time that you have to operate and play within the game of personal finance is longer. So the impact that you take on today has more opportunity to take its toll or have an effect. But at the end of the day, good habits are good habits. And they're rewarded by real gifts, real treasures. One of the books that really put me on the right path and that really helped me reset my mind, reset my relationship with money. Because I grew up with money being not a bad word, not a dirty word, but it didn't feel like something that one should talk about, that one should really discuss, or heaven forbid, talk about it with another family or another family member even. It wasn't something that really got brought up. And, I was young, so maybe I wasn't that tuned into it. But either way, I just didn't grow up with an open relationship with money. I didn't have the idea that I could talk about it with anyone I needed to. And what that did was it forced me to teach myself to, and like everything else in the world, I did it on accident. I learned about money on accident from my peers, from my environment, from jobs I had worked. I can't tell you, if you really want to have a poor relationship with money, do 2 things. Work in the service industry. That's a different kind of poor relationship with your money. And then go work a minimum wage job. Because the people who work minimum wage jobs, it's no fault of their own, but it's the conversations that you have around money when you are just barely getting by. It's a scarcity mindset because you're in a state of scarcity. I don't care where you are in the world right now. If you're making a minimum wage, there's likely some scarcity in your life. And there are things that you can do to help get out of it, to help affect it, to help change it and get better, but they start in your head. They start in your mind. If you have a negative relationship with money, then you need to actively work against it and learn how to correct it. My book recommendation is The Richest Man in Babylon. It's a phenomenal book. It was written in the 1920s. It's set as if it were in biblical times, but it's ultimately a storybook. If you're a parent, I highly recommend buying it and reading it to your kids. Maybe not letting them turn loose with it, because there's some things that you may want to emphasize or slow down on and really, stop and elaborate if they have questions. It's not really something I would say, hey, turn your 9-year-old on. But I would say, go read it to them, because the stories are beautiful and they work as adult fables for money about some of the key principles that I really appreciate are paying yourself first. When a man makes his dollar, or a woman makes her dollar, they tend to go out and use that dollar to self-sustain. They buy themselves food, they pay for their shelter, they pay their taxes, they pay for their municipalities' infrastructure and their children's education. They pay for these things, and in doing so, they spread the wealth of their income to the landlord, to the banker, to the school district, to the municipality, and to some degree, the book calls it the brick worker. When a wealthy man invests his riches into building a home, he makes the bricklayer richer. And in doing so, the bricklayer exchanges his time for value. But what one forgets to do when earning their own dollar is first pay yourself. And it's a lesson on saving, and it's a lesson on saving that my dad had to have given me at least 100 times in my first couple of jobs that I had, because he was really the only person that ever spoke to me about money and how I should treat it. And even then, I wasn't open to his suggestions because my mind had already been made. My relationship with money at that point was then 5, 6, 7 years old. And so I recommend this book in hopes that you'll read it and that your relationship with money, your relationship with how money flows into and out of your life, the natural ebb and flow of finances, is something that you can change your mind. You can change your mind on it. And when you change your mind, when you change the way you look at it, the things that you look at are going to change. And when you change the way that you look at your finances, and instead of saying, oh, I'm making this money so I can go pay these things, you think, I'm going to make this money and first pay myself. Money that you should keep. Pay yourself, keep a savings. Of every dollar you make, you first pay yourself, even if it's not much. Even if you can't afford to pay yourself much right now, pay yourself what you can. Do not ever make money and not pay yourself at least a little. And as time goes on, you'll be able to pay yourself more, because this discipline pays itself off in many different ways. But secondarily, when you pay yourself first, you restrict the amount of money you have to go give to others. And I don't know how much money any one of you has chosen to give to Amazon this year, but I know it's a lot, because Jeff Bezos is now worth a lot of money. And it's no dig at Jeff Bezos, but it is to say that you made the choice to give the money to him. I'm guilty of it too. I buy from Amazon. The convenience is phenomenal, but it's not a matter of who else you make rich if first you do not focus on your own wealth. And like I said, I'm not a wealthy person. It's not something that I can sit here and brag and say, oh, I made $1 million in 5 years. What I can say is that on what at times was a very limited income, my family ate. They had a roof over their heads. The lights may not have always been on. The water might not have always been running. But we never hit rock bottom. Anytime we got close, we bounced right back. And it was because of small disciplines that I learned over time. Before I carried these disciplines as rigidly as I do, I was forced to make some really tough decisions. And if you're making tough decisions this year because of the way the year has treated you financially, understand that the choices that you have available to you are few. A lot of the environment that you're in right now has to do with the decisions that you've made already, and these are the consequences. So change the consequences of tomorrow by affecting the choices you make today. Pay yourself first. Save money of everything. If you make $50, put away $5. If you make $5,000, put away as much as you can. The point is, if you find a penny on the ground, find a way to cut it in half before you go giving it to anyone else. This mindset's not just a discipline. It's something that's designed to ultimately change your relationship with money for the rest of your life. And my hope is that in doing so, it changes your kids' relationship with money, your brother, your spouse, your parents. This positivity, the things that I talk about aren't for me. It helps me to remind myself when I'm discussing these things, and I basically flesh out the thought here with you on Facebook Live or on YouTube. But what it does in my mind, in hopes that it's going to have an effect that cascades into your life, into your world, and that by me making your day a little bit better, you can go make someone else's day a little bit better. And over time, make for a better life. Thank you guys for joining me here today. Please remember, when you make some money, pay yourself first. Go read the book, read it to your kids, The Richest Man in Babylon. Thank you everybody for being here. I can't tell you how much I appreciate it. I hope you're liking the new setup. I hope it's a little bit easier to listen to. I really hope to see you on the next episode.